It has been shown that dogs can detect the scent of intact human burials, some of them thousands of years old. What happens when the body isn't buried, but left on the surface to be dismembered and scattered by scavengers? Human bones left on the surface will disintegrate within a decade. After the bones disappear, will there be any scent still present for a dog to detect? That is what we will discuss today. Left one, right one? That way. Okay, this image shows the locations where 4 different dogs detected scent from a single unmarked 19th century grave. The arrows indicate the different colored pin flags used by each handler dog team. The alerts are scattered along the axis of the grave. Each dog has a slightly different opinion about maximum scent, but all of the alerts are above the burial. When a body is not buried, scavengers can dismember the body and drag body parts hundreds of meters. The unconsumed body parts will eventually decompose. The fluids generated during decomposition will flow into the ground, carrying with them the scent of human decomposition. Sunlight and weather will eventually break down the bones, leaving no surface evidence. The scent from a single body part is much weaker than an intact burial, but it is still detectable centuries later. The canine detection of the scattered scent leaves a unique pattern with a concentration of alerts near the point of death, which gradually decreases as you get further away. The first example is the Donner family camps at Alder Creek. The Donner families and their teamsters of about 20 people were stopped by an early season snowstorm in the Sierra Nevada mountains in November 1846. They made 3 crude camps with tents. The George Donner family used a large pine tree as part of their shelter. The Jacob Donner family pitched a tent about 300 yards away next to a stream that flowed by both camps. The teamsters attending the cattle stayed in a nearby meadow. We know from the survivors that 8 people died, 5 in the George Donner camp, 2 in the Jacob Donner camp, and 1 in the Teamster camp. The locations of where this all occurred have been lost. The George Donner tree, shown there in the red square, was first labeled by an amateur historian from San Jose. He nailed signs to various trees identifying them as specific sites, such as a tree that was the alleged George Donner camp, another tree about 100 yards away as the Jacob Donner camp. There's no physical evidence that these locations were correct. When the Tahoe National Forest built the Donner family picnic area, such a unique name, they also created a loop trail that went to the George Donner tree. Visitors came to believe that this was the real location of the George Donner camp. In the 1990s, Donald Hardesty excavated extensively in the vicinity of the George Donner tree and didn't find anything. In 2004, Hardesty student Kelly Dixon excavated in the northern end of the meadow and found many processed animal bones and artifacts associated with the mid-19th century excavations. The conclusion of the team was that this area was occupied for an extended period of time by non-native people and could potentially be a Donner campsite. The Donner history indicates that there were 3 camps, so there were likely 2 more camps some distance from the Dixon discovery. In 2010, I took my trained dog to look for the human remains scent several hundred meters east of the George Donner tree. It took the dog only 45 minutes to start alerting. And now we see, over the next 2 years, 10 different handler dog teams searched more than 40 acres around the discovery. The scent was scattered over a wide area, as you can see from all of the red triangles, and with each of those triangles representing a single dog alert, likely where a human body part had been dragged during as the bodies were decomposed. The blue line shows an intermittent stream that flows through this area. The scent is roughly concentrated in 3 areas shown by the orange ellipses. The upper one's likely the George Donner camp. 5 people died in this camp, and the scent is far stronger in this area than the other sites. The middle ellipse is likely the Jacob Donner camp. The alerts are more scattered in this area, so it's difficult to precisely place its location. The camp is about 300 yards away from the likely George Donner camp and next to a stream that flows by both camps. This is consistent with a written statement by one of the George Donner daughters. The lower ellipse is centered on the 2004 Dixon discovery and likely represents the Teamsters camp. Next we'll go to a site in Wyoming, the Martin Handcart Party, which was a company organized by the Mormons to transmit and to take people from Iowa over to Salt Lake City. The company was slowed by early season snowstorms in central Wyoming. About 150 people of the 550 members of the company died before they reached Salt Lake City. Mormon diaries provide a good description of the location of the Aspen Grove campsite, but there's about a mile of uncertainty as to the exact spot. Harrison Sperry, part of the Mormon Rescue Mission, writes that we found 5 handcart people huddled around a small fire trying in vain to keep warm. They were in fact to bury 17 souls when he got there. This is an excellent case where a dog search might be a good way to recover the locations. And the arrows show the initial path that the dogs searched. This is along a place called Strawberry Creek, along the northern edge of the map. Mormon diaries indicate that the Aspen Grove camp was likely in a cluster of trees along Strawberry Creek, within a mile of the trail crossing, which is on the left side. The day we searched, the wind was blowing strongly out of the west with snow flurries. It's good Wyoming weather. The dogs searched both areas of Strawberry Creek, as shown by the arrows. They found nothing in the first mile. The Mormon archaeologists noted there was another cluster of trees to the south on a small hill, and perhaps that could provide the area. And by the way, we're not syncing up and showing that. It's good. All right, go on. Okay, now we're good. We headed south into this clump of trees shown by the orange ellipse. The trees in this area provided good shelter from the wind. It was so comfortable, we took a break to have lunch. During lunch, one of the dogs wandered 100 feet to the west and alerted to human remain scent. The dog probably picked up the scent from the weak wind in the sheltered area. After lunch, we sent the other dogs west to investigate. And this is what they found. And the scattered alerts over a wide area, around approximately over 100 meters. We expected that a mass grave of 16 people would be a compact, intense scent signature. Instead, we had weak scent scattered over a large area. The most logical explanation is that the mass grave has been dug up by wolves or other carnivores, and the bodies scattered over a wider area after the rescue party departed. And finally, we'll talk about the Donner Snowshoe Party Camp of Death. That's good names that the Donner Party picked out for these things. On Christmas Eve, 14 members who had left the Donner camps on a homemade snowshoes 9 days earlier were trapped by an intense blizzard. They had run out of food several days earlier and were lost. They built a large fire on top of the deep snow to keep warm. About 10 p.m. that night, their only axe head flew off the handle and disappeared into the snow. About midnight, their fire had melted the surface layers of snow and it fell into a hidden creek below their camp and was put out. With no fire or light, they made a crude bivouac shelter from the blankets that they were carrying. During the 2-day storm, 4 people died. On Christmas Eve, we know from the diary of one of the survivors that December 23rd, they were trapped on top of a mountain, likely near the upper square. On December 30th, they had left their deceased companions on top of the snow and traveled to their next camp, shown by the center left square. They were camped on an edge above a deep canyon and could see the valley of the Sacramento from their camp. There's only one place in this area of the Sierra that meets that description. This is along a ridge with visibility in the Sacramento Valley and a half a mile above the North Fork of the American River. The Camp of Death has to be somewhere along the line between these two areas. We then went and searched for it along a number of creeks that flowed into Burnett Canyon. Along one of these creeks, the dogs located scattered human remains scent. This was the only place where they detected scent during the entire search. And it is almost on the direct line between the December 23rd and December 30th camps. This would be a likely location for the Camp of Death. If it is the correct place, the axe head might still be in this area. And the bivouac shelter with 14 people in it would have required a reasonably flat area, which I've marked with the orange circle, which shows the only flat area big enough to support that shelter. The following spring, after the canine search, an investigating team found another surprise. It is a 19th century axe head that was only about 10 meters from the likely bivouac area. Is it a coincidence or an artifact from the Donner Snowshoe Party? Well, let's look at this axe head. It's homemade, and the blade shape is consistent with the style used in New England. 19th century axe heads varied in shape depending on the type of wood they were used to cut. The organizer of the Donner Snowshoe Party was from Vermont. Unfortunately, there's not any engraving on the axe head that could identify the owner. But we can't prove this is the location of the Camp of Death. The canine detection of death sites and the 19th century axe head in proximity to the campsite suggests that this is the most likely explanation. In conclusion, the dogs can be a useful tool for archaeologists to locate places where people have died and use that with other evidence to figure out the story.